Do you ever struggle with the people that you care about wanting to go out and do things and you just really don't want to, but then you don't know if you're being a Debbie Downer or just in general being unfair? Then this is a video for you. Hi, I'm Kim Long. I'm with Docha Psychological Services, and today's video is about determining whether or not your boundaries are a little bit too harsh if you are classically an introvert and a lot of the people you care about are extroverts. And as always, this video is meant for educational purposes only. It represents my opinion, hopefully an informed opinion, but it does not represent a therapeutic relationship or the views of my college. So take what you can from it and leave the rest. So yeah, I think for me it's interesting that I'm more on the introversion end of the scale than the extroversion end of the scale, but you know, I've learned to function in that extroverted world. And it's hard for some of the important people in my life to understand that because I can seem so extroverted, and they are more on the extroversion end of things, which is where I guess it's that yin and yang thing where opposites attract. But anyway, that's a whole other video. So here are some guidelines that I try to use when I'm trying to make a decision. Well, first of all, I have been clear with all of the people that are important in my life that I will tend to have an emotional response first, which when it comes to social situations tends to be a knee-jerk no. I've asked them to give me space to let me think about it first before giving you a clear answer, and then I'm able to engage in a discussion about it. And so in summary, that indicator of it being too harsh would be if I was not being incremental in setting my limits on that. So what does that mean? If okay, so my first limit would be, please understand that I will not want to do it right away, so please give me time to think about it. So that's my first limit. But if I just came out with a heck no, never doing that, don't ever ask me again, that's really harsh. And that would be very surprising to the other person because they don't know the backstory. So when you are first setting a boundary, particularly around social situations for introversion, you want to kind of step them into it. You don't want to hit them upside the head with a 2x4 with your limit. You don't want to surprise them with it. So baby walk them through the things that start to make you feel uncomfortable, and then that way they can work with you without getting defensive and without you getting defensive. And that ties in with the second indicator that your boundaries may be a little bit too harsh, and that is that a lot of your relationships are ending. That, you know, people stop calling, or you stop calling people, and your social circle shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. Now, this is different than our social circle shrinking because we figure things out and we figure out, you know, who we align with, people who resonate with our values. As we get older, we tend to be a little bit more picky in our relationships. So this is different than that. This is where you have your group of people that you really love and resonate with, but slowly you see that eroding because the limits you're setting are maybe a little bit too harsh. And then this ties into another indicator. It's weird how they're all connected. If you aren't considering the needs of others in setting your boundary, this doesn't mean you roll over and you say, of course, we'll do whatever you want to do. That's not what it is. This is like the lemon and the washerwoman chef story. So if you don't know what that is, I can certainly explain that to you at another time. But basically what you're looking for is a discussion, a negotiation, where some of your needs are met and some of their needs are met. And that involves insight, awareness, open and honest communication where you don't feel like you're surrendering and being way too vulnerable and not receiving any vulnerability in return, and where the other person feels safe to do the same. So in setting our boundaries, we want to make sure that we are still considering the needs of others. And if we aren't doing that, then that is also a pretty harsh boundary and probably unfair. And then the last sign that I try to use, and again, this involves slowing down, being aware, letting people know right off the bat that I am aware that I'm going to have an emotional reaction first. I won't be in my right mind because it feels like a huge threat. So let me come back into right mind so that I can figure out what is my intention of setting this limit. So my boundary might be too harsh if I am unclear about what my intention is. If my intention by setting the boundary is to avoid or to, well, it's another avoidance thing, give into fear, then my boundary is probably unfair or too harsh, because that's me avoiding doing my own work just for the sake of making life easier. It's not always great. So what I need to do is recognize when I am avoiding or afraid and communicate that to the other person so that they can either support me or so that they can give me more space to set some other limits around it where I'm still engaging in the activity, while also feeling safe and acknowledging my needs within it. So I really try to be clear about what is my intention by setting the boundary. If my intention is genuinely that this situation doesn't fit my values, then that's one thing. However, like I said, if the intention is avoidance or fear-based, then that invites further dialogue with the person that is inviting you to do the thing. So, just to sum it all up, your boundary, if you are more on the introversion end, when you are dealing with an extrovert for a social situation, your boundary may be too harsh if you are not incrementally setting it, meaning baby steps towards the big boundary and the stop it. If you notice too many of your relationships are eroding, if you aren't considering the needs of others, and if you are unclear about your intention, if it's actually about avoidance or fear rather than a genuine limit around this doesn't align with who I am as a person. Good luck. As always, if you have any questions, please let us know. I'm more than happy to try to answer them. And, just listen to yourself. You know yourself, and be honest with yourself. And from there, just have a great conversation. They're your friends because they care about you. In most situations, they will try to understand or at least guide you through your fear. You can still honor you while honoring someone else. So give it a shot. Good luck. And as always, take care of yourself until I see you next time. Bye for now.